Well, hi there. Welcome to Streets and Eats, the podcast where we want to inspire your next trip by telling you some fantastic destinations and, hey, the best food to eat while you're there. Now remember, until the world opens completely back up and you feel safe to travel again, use this time to research and plan. That's what we're here for. And in this episode, we're going to take you to Paris.
There was never a time when I didn't want to go to Paris.
Me neither.
Well, you studied French in high school. I didn't. I always took Spanish.
I took 5 years of French in high school.
So you've always been my live-in translator.
Live-in translator.
But I've always wanted to go to Paris. You know, you see it in the movies, you hear the music, fashion, food, everything's in Paris. Now, I have to say, I haven't always been the biggest fan.
Oh, you definitely were not much of a Francophile. When we first lived in Europe back in our 20s, and we were young and brash, and we ran into quite a few of the typical, what I would like to say, French waiters that, how can I say it? They were pushy, they were rude.
Somewhat rude.
They were
always in a hurry and trying to rush you.
And Jim really took that to heart. He wasn't a fan. He didn't want to go back to France, period. But I love France.
But I've always loved Paris.
And I always loved
Paris. And the
Paris.
architecture and everything about it. So I got over that real quick.
And by the way, they don't act like that anymore. The French took a look into themselves, as any good person should, and they realized that they were not being the most welcoming to tourists. And that was kind of biting them in the butt. So they turned around and now they have a very welcoming culture, as opposed to a look down my nose at you culture. Although I still wouldn't order Coke with my dinner.
No.
Tip.
No,
anyway.
They have to get a wine.
Yeah, I started taking French when I was in 8th grade, and I can remember my first dialogue, because that's how they teach you to speak languages. It went like this: Michel, Anne, vous travaillez? Non, nous regardons la télévision. Pourquoi? Les deux ponts arrivent dans une heure. S'il te plaît, maman. Encore 5 minutes. Now, I'm telling you, that was a long time ago that I learned that dialogue, and I will never forget it. And it just makes me love everything French, everything. We were talking, the dialogue was about watching TV and asking mom for 5 more minutes, just in case you were wondering.
The only French I've ever gotten was from European Vacation.
Ooh la la, cigarette, Suzette, baguette.
Yeah, and from songs. Blackfus, yeah. Well, in European Vacation, it's Mon crayon.
Mon crayon
est grand.
Why were they talking about their crayon?
Because it's European Vacation.
Ay.
It was an entente, an innuendo. Anyway, yes, we love Paris.
We love Paris so much that we not only go in the springtime when everybody loves Paris.
I think we've been there every season.
We go every season, and we go again and again.
It just gets in your blood.
Yeah.
And, doing the research for this podcast, guess where I want to go now?
I know. It just makes us want to go back. Well, when we lived in the Netherlands, we were only a few hours from France. And you could either go by train for a couple hours or drive for a couple hours, either way.
Yeah.
And our youngest daughter, was 15. And she had her own Rick Steves Paris. And she knew, I tell you, that girl knew Paris like the back of her hand. And I mean, she was telling us places to go that we had never thought of before. So,
oh yeah. And luckily she knew her way around the city, because after living in the Netherlands for a while, we were used to ordering large beers, because in the Netherlands, you always get a small beer, and you have to specify, I want a large beer to get anything even close to a regular size beer. I'm talking like a 33?
It's a 0.33 liter.
0.33 liter.
A third of a liter is nothing,
That's
folks.
the large beer. So,
well, it's the normal beer.
No, you have to ask for that one specifically. Otherwise, you get a 0.25. So we got used to asking for large beers in the Netherlands. And when we went on this one trip to Paris with Erica, Corinne and I both ordered
a large
beers. And guess what? We got a full liter beer, which I didn't think you could get outside of the Oktoberfest, frankly.
They were some big beers.
And Erica had to help us get home that day.
Yeah, thankfully she was
well versed.
Yeah, we were really
lightweights. But, every time we go to Paris, we've always find something new and exciting to do and see and eat, buy, whatever.
Now, the thing about Paris is it's a city. It's a huge city. It's a huge city with lots to do and lots to see. So if you're going there for the very first time, then you want to take it easy. You want to try and think about, what are the things that you've heard about all your life that you must see? Once we mention them, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I got to go there. I got to go there. I got to go there. But I think our advice to you is don't try and do it all. And don't try and do it all in one day.
All right.
Spread it out.
Don't burn yourself out.
Take time to wander the back streets, to, just take a walk here and there. Take the train to a different neighborhood.
Sit in a garden.
Yeah.
Just enjoy. People watch.
I think that's one of the things I like about Paris the most is even though you have to pay for those tables that you're sitting at, that's a cost that people aren't always expecting, but you do have a table cost. But you sit there and then you can sit there as long as you want, just watching life go by, and it's fun.
Drink your coffee, smoke your cigarette.
Yeah, café au lait.
Read the paper and watch people.
Yeah.
And just go slow. Paris is a good place for slow travel, I think.
Although I don't know how many people do it slowly.
No, it's hard. We're all limited on time. So, that's the big thing. Make sure you plan enough time. I think a week for a first time to Paris is probably a good amount of time. Much more than that. And certainly you could spend more than that. But I tend to find myself getting a little burned out in cities if I stay too long.
Yeah, I want to get out in the countryside.
And if I'm going to be there more than a week, then I really want to get out and do a little bit more of the country too. I don't want to just stay in the city.
If you do find that you have more time and you want to get out in the countryside, refer back to our top 5 places in France.
Yeah.
Podcast we did a few weeks ago.
There's so much to do.
There's a lot to do. Okay, so when is the best season to go to Paris? I really can't pick a best season.
It's hard. I think
summer is maybe the worst season.
Summer is the one I would avoid if I could. Of course, it's the time when most people have the vacation time to go, which is why it's always so crowded in the summer. But it's also hot.
It can get very hot in Paris.
It rains a lot. It's not my favorite time, but it's also a time when the days are at their longest. So you do get some really nice, long, kind of luxurious, warm evenings that are perfect for eating outside and visiting friends, people watching, walking around some of those, winding back alleys and streets that are so fascinating. That's a great time for it. So there is something to be said for summer too.
Well, I can see why the song is always about Paris in the springtime, because there are so many flowers everywhere. And the lime green leaves of the bushes and the overhang of the trees.
Just popping. The colors popping everywhere.
Yeah, it's such a vibrant time.
Yeah.
There's so many green spaces and beautiful colors. And,
clear
Paris is the city of love. So,
yeah,
it's gorgeous. And all those little alleyways, they have, all kinds of flowers in their boxes along the corners. They just have flowers everywhere.
Yeah.
So it makes it so beautiful. And fall too is gorgeous.
Fall is probably my favorite.
Well, fall's my favorite everywhere.
Fall is always my favorite, no matter where we are. But I really like it in Paris. You get those really huge leaves that are almost plate size that just fall and blanket everything, and they crinkle as you walk through them before they get all swept up every other day.
I like walking down on the edge of the Seine and through where the boxes are and where the book boxes are.
Oh, right.
And like you said, the big leaves are there and it's like crunchy.
Kind of brushing your way through.
Everybody's got their, their woolens on and they're just sidling along.
The weather's getting a little blustery.
For a good book.
You get those nice fluffy gray loaded with rain clouds in the sky, but yet at the same time, the air is super clear and clean.
Winter can be a bit chilly.
It can, but it's also, it can be very festive because I think Paris does a great job of, well, I mean, it's the city of lights, right? So Christmas decorations and just lights everywhere to really cheer you up. And Christmas markets too, if you go before Christmas.
That's right, Christmas markets. And it's good soup season.
Oh yeah. Do you remember that time? We went with some friends to Paris one winter. I think we went for an air show, but we were also just touring Paris. And they wanted to go to one of the flea markets, one of the famous flea markets. And, you know, those are okay. We like a good flea market, but I mean, they were dedicated. They wanted to go through the entire thing, which would take hours. So
Jim and I don't have that much stamina for fleas.
So we went off. No, we don't. We went off and found this tiny little restaurant on the edge of the flea market area that I think they only had soup. I don't remember anybody eating anything else. And we got this nice big steaming tureen of onion soup with, you know, the crusted baguette slices on top with the melted cheese. And I mean, this thing was enough to feed 4 people, but as a meal for 2, we just dug into that thing and it was loved it. The windows were steaming. And of course people are walking by with their purchases. It was magical.
It was straight out of a movie.
Right.
It was really nice. And we were cheered up. And that was just the wonderful thing. You can just hang out in Paris and have just as much fun. I think they have fun in the flea market too.
I'm sure they did. If that's your thing, there are some good flea markets there.
Public transportation is a piece of cake. You can take the subway, the trains all over the place. The only thing you have to remember is that Paris is a much larger city than you might realize until you start taking the trains out to some of these little further flung places, and it takes you longer than you think. So if you're going to take the train, just remember that it might not be a quickie.
Well, my advice for people getting around in Paris, the metro is great. It's clean. It's efficient. It runs on time mostly. But you're going to be climbing a lot of stairs.
Oh my gosh, there's so many stairs in Paris. And if you're transferring
between stations, you're going to be doing a lot of walking. And you're underground the whole time, so you're not seeing Paris. So what I tell people is, if you're going across town, you're going, you know, from one area, from one section of the city all the way to the other side of the city, take the metro. That's really the only way to do it. But if you're staying in one area in one of the arrondissements, take a bus. You're above ground. The only step you're going to take is to step onto the bus. So there's no climbing stairs. You get to look out the windows the whole time and see Paris. I'm sure there are ugly parts of the city, but they're few and far between. And it's just the way to go.
We love a bus.
Yeah.
We really do. I think that you get more of a feel. I mean, subways are fine too, and they do get you places.
Yeah.
And we've taken plenty. But I think that when we have a choice, we'd rather go with the bus because we like the windows and we like seeing where we are and kind of getting a feel for where we are. And you know what? People on buses are more apt to talk to you, it seems like, than people on subways. Because subway people are commuters and they're like, okay, I've just finished my work and
I think
don't talk to me. But on a bus, they're like,
just get into that frame of mind where, okay, I'm on the subway now. I'm going from one point to another and I don't want to bother anybody. Nobody's going to bother me. But yeah, a bus is more of a community, I think.
Plus the bus driver is right there. And bus drivers have always been one of the people that you can depend on to give you good directions. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to a site and we're not exactly sure, we think we're going to get off at this stop and, you know, but how do we know when it's that stop? We just always tell the bus driver, you know, we're here, we're going to like say Napoleon's tomb. And
will this take us there? And which stop do we need?
Yeah. And then they always make sure that you're there. They'll say, you know, the equivalent of, hey, lady, it's your turn. I mean, I just love that.
And I love
not having to worry about it.
And even if they don't, it's someone you can ask. And invariably, somebody else on the bus is going to hear you ask and will offer help as well if the bus driver doesn't. And you just don't have that opportunity on a subway other than, you know, cold asking a neighbor on the subway.
Which, I mean,
you'll
get answers and it'll be fine. But, I don't know. There's just something. We Jim and I definitely prefer buses to subways.
We typically recommend the bus, especially in Paris.
Okay, so I would say not one person is going to go to Paris and not see the Eiffel Tower.
What is the movie? French Kiss, where
that's like the perfect movie for it.
It's a great movie. It's not all about Paris, but part of it does take place in Paris.
The beginning.
And so there's a part of the movie where Meg Ryan is in Paris. Her character is in Paris, and she never sees the Eiffel Tower. Every time she's in an area where it's visible, like she'll glance to the side and the camera will cut to a bus going by, and she turns back around. And as soon as the bus goes by, we see as the audience, the Eiffel Tower is there glittering with all its lights on, and she missed it. I think that's funny.
Yeah, that's one of our favorite movies.
Yeah. But you're going to see the Eiffel Tower. There's some really good places to see it from if you don't want to climb it or take the elevator up it.
Exactly.
You can get a picnic and go sit on the Champ de Mars. And that's the nice big grassy park that kind of runs southeast of it.
It goes right through it.
Goes right through it and then past it. It's a great place to sit and just people watch, throw a frisbee, have a snack, glass of wine, champagne, and take in the Eiffel Tower right there in all its glory.
I mean, climbing it is what most people think is necessary. But, it's the age-old saying, you don't climb the Eiffel Tower to see the Eiffel Tower. Right. You climb the Eiffel Tower to see the views from the Eiffel Tower.
Which are stunning.
But you know what? I think the views from the Arc de Triomphe are better. My personal.
Well, you can see the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
In those views. So that is nice.
So the Arc de Triomphe, I think, is another thing that most people would go to. However, the Arc de Triomphe, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with. I do believe that's a great place to go and that you should go up to the top and look at the views from there. But it seems to be, more so than other sites, a place for
pickpockets and scammers.
Yeah.
Not sure why. I mean, there's not. It's kind of a strange place to encounter them. I think the reason
is because it's a circle that has so many roads that come into it. They can easy get out of there. Easy escape with. They know what they're doing, and a tourist is kind of like, huh, what?
And there's really no other reason to be there except as a tourist,
right?
Or a pickpocket, I guess.
Yeah, you're not gonna be selling things or.
Well, we had that one time that we were at the Arc de Triomphe where, was it a couple or just one man came up to us and said, I've just found this wedding ring. Did you lose your wedding ring? And held out this big honking rock of a wedding ring.
Boy, did he call that wrong.
Yeah. We said no. But what it was they were looking, he had a partner that would tag his targets, his marks. And really what they were doing was when he asked if you lost your wedding ring, your instinct is to look at your hand and look at your wedding ring, which would give him a really good view of your wedding ring and a good way to size you up as a target. And then they would mark you and then they would follow you back and either mug you or, burglar your hotel room. So that happened to us.
They did try it with us, but like I said, they barked up the wrong tree immediately.
Wedding ring, we lost your diamond decades ago. It wasn't ever anything big to begin with. So we've just been kind of sharing a wedding ring the whole time, and it's not anything special.
It's really nothing.
The special of our wedding, of our marriage, is just our togetherness.
Aww.
Isn't that sweet? So, okay, the other thing with the Arc de Triomphe is if you want to go to the top, you have to climb the stairs. There's no elevator. Eiffel Tower, you can take an elevator. You can choose to climb the stairs, but I would recommend the elevator.
Well, and I'm not discouraging people from climbing the Eiffel Tower. I've done it myself a number of times. But the Eiffel Tower, to me, is a little bit more commercial. First of all, you stand in line forever. Then you get up there, and all it is,
views of the
shops.
City.
It's just shops.
Right.
For me, I like the Arc de Triomphe better because You get up there, you take your pictures, you enjoy yourself at the top of the view, and then you leave. There might be a few touts out there, but not really. I mean, it's fine.
It's not so much of a touristy area.
Not so commercial, yeah.
And we do talk about that. We did talk about the one incident with the scammers. But it's not like a scary thing.
If you're aware of them, city. Then you don't have to worry about it. It's
like any other city where there's tourism. That exists. And if you are careful and just aware of it and take a few precautions, you will never have any issues. I think. That's my take on it.
I don't think you can say never. Because I think...
Well, we did, and we were careful. But we didn't have any issues. We just encountered it. And we knew what to do. So it wasn't too bad. Well, the other thing that's fun about the Arc de Triomphe, if you get a chance, is to drive around it.
Well, fun. I'm not sure if fun is the right answer. Suicidal?
6 lanes, no lines, no markings at all. And pretty much everybody in the circle knows where they're going, except for the tourist just driving around it.
You do need to watch European Vacation because
that's fun.
Roundabouts. Oh yeah. I love roundabouts personally, but not with 12 roads coming in.
But that's a good drive. And then driving down the Champs-Élysées. If I'm going to drive in a city, the first time, I always like to do it on a Sunday morning. It's the best time. The city's pretty much empty. Tip. Yeah.
That's a pro tip we have anyway. If you're going to want to take some pictures of people, of no one around, some of these big sites, you get up at dark 30 before the sun comes up. You rent your car the day before, Saturday night, and you have it all the way through Sunday night or Monday, depending. Usually it's Monday morning because things are closed on Sunday.
Right.
And then you get up really early and you hit the sites and you jump out and you get your photos without anybody in there. And you drive on some of those roads that are iconic roads and you can say you did it.
Yeah. And the traffic is super easy and the driving is not a problem for someone who's new to the city. It's a great way to do it.
A couple hours later, after you feel like you've done enough, you go out for a nice big brunch.
Yeah. Or just go out and explore the countryside for the other half of the day before you turn in the car. It's not a bad way to do it. We like to do that.
We love to do that.
Okay, so the Eiffel Tower, the Arc de Triomphe, of course, the Seine, the banks of the Seine are UNESCO World Heritage.
I was going to just say that. And that's because everything grew up on the banks of the Seine, like Notre Dame.
It's the center of the city.
The Ile de la Cité. There's a statue of Henry the
Louvre.
The Louvre is there. D'Orsay is there. Everything grew up along the banks of the Seine. So one of the things you can do and find out all about that is to take a Seine tour, a boat tour on the Seine, which I did the very, very first time I went to France.
Mm-hmm. If you take any type of package tour to France, it's probably to Paris.
It will be on there.
It's probably going to include a cruise on the Seine for sure.
It was summer. It was August, I remember. And it was actually a nice temperature outside. Oh, but that boat, because it's glass. Oh my gosh. I just thought I wore a sweater. It was ridiculous.
And you can't really get out, can you?
Oh, you can't do anything.
So the better ones are the ones that are open that you can get out on the deck if possible. But most of them are just enclosed glass tubes going down the river.
I mean, it's one of those things. It's always fun to take a boat tour wherever you are anyway.
There's also a hop-on, hop-off boat, the Bateau bus, which is kind of like runs in conjunction with the hop-on, hop-off buses, but it goes up and down the Seine, and you can get a 24-hour pass or a 48-hour pass. And you can get the ticket for that, and you can get on the boat. It's got a few stops, but the easiest one is probably right there at the Eiffel Tower. Not the last time we went, but one of the more recent times we went to Paris, our booking at the hotel included a Seine river cruise.
Do you remember that? Right.
So that was like a little freebie. That was kind of nice. You do have to be careful though. I think in spring, the river can get very high and the cruises maybe all canceled. It's because, the river's too high and the boats can't get under the bridges. But I don't think that's a regular thing. I think that's only in bad winters and bad springs.
Those bad winters and bad springs.
Bad winter. So one of my favorite things to do in Paris is just to get a baguette and a bottle of bubbly water, and maybe some cheese, or a bottle of bubbly wine.
A rosé.
Ooh, for a nice summer day. And just go sit on a bench. Or
on the grass.
I forget the name of the park. There's a park at the very tip of the Ile de la Cité, and there's a statue of Henry IV. It's like right off the Pont Neuf, and that tip comes right out into the Seine in a point, and you can just sit there and watch the boats go by. You can watch the people on the other side of the river. It's just a great place to sit in a nice, under a nice shady tree if it's hot. That's one of the things I like to do the most.
Well, if you're back at the Arc de Triomphe and you are walking along the Champs-Élysées, there's lots to do along the Champs-Élysées. It is the shopping avenue of Europe. I mean, every city has their own, but this one is of Paris. And Paris, of course, like Jim said, is the fashion
Mecca,
and it has like the wonderful patisseries and bakeries.
La Durée, macaron.
La Durée. Yeah, La Durée to me is like it's where you go to get macarons and beautiful pastries. And it's kind of like the Ritz-Carlton of bakeries, right?
Right.
So you go in there and it's all fancy, Queen Victoria style. You got your gold lame, and you've got just glitz and glam everywhere. So if you want your Instagrams, you want to go in there for sure. But even if you just want a nice little patisserie, little pastry, you want to go in there and pick out one of the
for the experience,
many that they have. I think they're a little bit pricey, and of course they've made a name for themselves, so you can get just as good a pastry as other places. But I think for the experience, it's probably well worth it.
Yeah, at least once while you're there. You want to walk the Champs-Élysées. Do you need to walk it all the way from the Arc de Triomphe to the Louvre? That's quite a walk. I think
it depends on how much you enjoy it. I mean, do you want to look at Ferraris? Do you want to look at fashion? Are you
going to be shopping and carrying bags around?
People do. We saw people with huge bags. That's not really, our thing. That's not us. But
But we still like to window shop and see what's there and stay current on the most recent fashions.
Yeah, maybe
that's us.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
You can rent your Ferrari there and take it for a short spin up and down.
You can, I think as short as 15 minutes.
Yep, that's right. Okay.
So then, then there's other places to go that are must. You want to go up Montmartre. You want to go to Sacré-Cœur, which is up in the same area. And Montmartre is where it's famous for the artists in the middle of the square. And they have all the cafes around it. And you can just sit there watching them smoke their cigarette.
Sip their coffee.
Sip their little petit coffee. As they paint the same thing they've painted for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And if you're going to take a picture of them, you better ask them
first.
Because
some don't like their pictures taken, and they will tell you that. Do they want a tip or something?
I don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know, but we do know that some don't like having their photo taken.
But Montmartre is it's a very cool part of the city too.
It
is very old, and those winding roads and lots of close packed shops and cafes, and
again, you have to pay to sit at the table. Just know. Sure. Inside or outside, you have to pay.
And it's just the perfect place to wander around. They do also have a really nice market in that area. So if you're there on the right day, you can do an open air market.
Yeah, you want to do that.
Which you want to do. That's definitely something you want to do. We'll talk about that when we talk about eating.
And Sacré-Cœur is the big cathedral up on the hill that overlooks the city. It's sparkling white.
Right. You can see
gorgeous.
It all around the city.
And again, to get there, I think you can take an elevator, but there's plenty of stairs.
I like to take the funicular.
Oh, the funicular.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, well, anytime you can put the fun in funicular.
Right.
You want to do that.
Who puts the fun in funicular? Paris does. Well, there's also so many museums. For the first timer, it can be really overwhelming. You have to go to the Louvre, even if you're just going for the architecture. It was the original palace before Versailles. So the architecture is just stunning. And of course, the artwork. You really need to make a good plan for a Louvre trip. You're not going to just rock up to the window, buy a ticket, and go wander through the Louvre. That is not going to happen. You can walk up and wait in line to buy a ticket. However, you're going to be waiting in line for hours.
And you just want to plan it. Make sure you try and go very, very early in the morning. Buy your tickets ahead of time.
Get a time slotted entry. Buy it online. Or
go during dinner time.
Or yes, Fridays, it's open later. So if you go in the evening on Friday, that's a good time to go. During the week, of course, it's going to be a lot less crowded than the weekend. Wednesdays are probably the best day during the day to go. Like I said, you can get your tickets online right through the museum and pick a time entry. You're still going to have probably a 30-minute wait as you go through the line to get in during your timed entry. But that's much better. And you can just show up around your time and you won't have a problem. But then once you're in the museum, have a good idea of what you want to do inside the museum.
Have a route.
Make a plan. Out. Yes. Plan out your route. If you want to see the Egyptian artifacts, make sure you know where they are. Maybe head there first and then work your way back. If you want to see the Mona Lisa, make sure you know where that is. You need to have a plan. Otherwise, you'll be going from massive palace room to palace room.
And you won't remember a thing.
Overwhelmed by so much art that you can't even imagine. Artists you've never heard of, artists that you have heard of, and they just all start to meld together. So we like to just go in and really plan on spending 2 hours.
Max.
Not much more.
And we try to find the things. Well, we've already done the things like the Mona Lisa and the Egyptians and the things that everyone wants to see. So I think one of my favorite exhibits I went to one time was the French perfume bottles. And there was nobody in there. I guess that doesn't sound interesting to anybody else, but they are gorgeous and beautiful. And so that's why I wanted to do them.
Well, so many people go in without a plan and get overwhelmed in 2 hours and have not made it past, the first few galleries. And there are many galleries to go to.
Many, many.
So have a plan.
And then across the street
and down a little bit, down the river a little bit.
Not far.
Yeah, down the river, I guess, is the Musée d'Orsay, which is where the Impressionists are, and a lot of other artwork, of course.
But it's mostly Impressionists. And it's very easy. It's a big open space, very easy to walk around. And I don't know why, but through my French teaching, they were always talking about the Impressionists. I don't remember anything else about art or music or anything in France except the Impressionists. So that was something that really spoke to
colorful.
Me. They were colorful. Yeah.
Or maybe not. Some of them were pretty drab, actually.
But it's a nice museum. And I think actually one of my favorites.
It's an old train station. Again, the architecture is incredible. You'll spend time just looking at the building itself as well as the artwork. Again, 2 hours is that's kind of our limit for any museum. And
we only do one museum a day.
Yes.
And we may not do one every day.
And you can get a timed entry again, which you really want to do. Another option is to get the museum pass. It's not something we do. If there's a museum pass,
we do sometimes.
We typically don't get it because we almost always know we're going to be returning somewhere. And there's no reason for us to do every museum during one trip. And if you're only going to do 2 or even 3 museums during a trip, the pass is going to cost more. than just getting the individual tickets. In the past, it used to be that it would get you an easier entry into the museum. But now with timed tickets that you buy online, that's not quite as important. Although if you really don't have any time, and even that half hour that it might take for your timed entry is too much, you can always book a tour through Get Your Guide, one of our partners, or other places where there are skip the line tours, and they'll take you right in and you won't wait in line at all. So that's always an option too.
Yeah, well, I think those are.
What about I don't know.
Did we hit them all?
My French is horrible.
What?
But Napoleon's Tomb, where is that? Les Invalides.
Les Invalides. Yeah, it's called Les Invalides.
Yeah.
But I didn't put it on. I don't consider it one of those number one things to do. It's important to us because we love military history.
Yeah, it's got a great military museum, but it is Napoleon's tomb. So.
It is also Napoleon's tomb, and it's also where the head of what's his name? Valjean. Valbonne.
Oh, that's right. His heart is buried.
His heart is
entombed there as well.
Because Napoleon moved it.
Was Napoleon's chief military architect, and we've seen and talked about some of his works, defensive works around France. Very impressive.
Just enjoy him.
Very impressive, and it's a cool story. But it's also where right across the street is the Rodin Museum.
Yeah, I'm not a big Rodin fan.
I am. I like sculpture.
Yeah.
So maybe you put that on, maybe you win it.
Anyway, I don't know. I mean,
but
already we're getting to a long list of things to do, and the whole idea is to enjoy Paris for Paris.
Right.
You know, there's a lot more to do in Paris, tons more. But do you want to do it on your first trip? I say no. I say if you have that much time, get out into the countryside and see a whole different part of France. That's what I agree. Say. But you can't go to Paris without two important things: eating and drinking, cheese and wine.
Oh yeah, and bread
and patisserie, and, pastries,
boulangerie, drinking coffee. Yes, so we have a couple of really favorite places that we try to go to pretty much every time we go.
Well, a lot of times we're taking people.
Depending on what part of the city we're in.
We're revisiting the same places, A, that we like, but B, that we know are something that people would love to go to. Like there's a restaurant called Le Soufflé. Well, who doesn't want to have soufflé?
Oh, those soufflés are incredible.
They have tons of savory, tons of sweet.
So many different to choose from. The best way to do that at Le Soufflé is if you're a couple.
Or with your best friend or something.
First order a savory that you share. They don't mind if you share it.
They don't care.
Quite
They're
okay.
huge.
You can both dig into the souffle bowl at the same time. And then order a sweet for dessert afterwards. You're not going to eat yourself. You're not going to eat two souffles.
They're just, they're too big and they're too rich.
Big. It's too filling. And you just can't do it.
And they are too delicious.
But they're perfect for sharing. And that way you don't have to decide between a savory and a sweet. So that's definitely one we recommend. It's near the Louvre too. So that makes a good stop after a morning visit to the Louvre or to the d'Orsay because it's, I guess,
it's
near
right
both.
there. Yeah. So one of my favorites though is Le Comptoir du Relais. Le Comptoir really just means counter, and there are tons and tons of restaurants called Le Comptoir. But the one called du Relais is your typical French bistro. It's red. It's got these little black tables with, what do you call that?
Like wicker
kind of filling on the seat in the back.
Yes.
I forget what that's called. There's a special word for
wicker work. I don't know what it's called.
I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway.
And the outside tables are all lined up along the sidewalk and they're very close together like you expect to see in Paris. And you wait in line. And if you get a seat outside, then you sit shoulder to shoulder. I don't know. With the pandemic, they must be separated more, which means that it's a lot harder to get a seat.
It's probably harder to get a seat, yeah.
It's hard enough as it is during normal times.
Now, Le Comptoir du Relais is one of the first places that we went and used Google Translate on a menu.
Oh, that's right.
And I think I'll just never forget it because the translations, I mean, we're talking, the goose flew into the morning light.
Yes.
Well, what does that mean?
Very poetic menu.
Poetic, but, are you getting what it says?
Not very helpful.
But it was delicious.
Yeah. So you're going to get all your French specialties there, traditional.
And not so traditional, or just really good French food.
Yeah.
The last time we were there, we've been a few times, and we really do try and go every time. It's just one of our favorite places. The last time we were there was a whole school. I forget I think they were Italians. A whole school of Italian students, culinary school, came in. And that's where one of the restaurants, I mean, I'm sure they went to others as well, that they chose to take them to for real French cooking. And it was so interesting just to watch the students look at these dishes, which are French, not Italian, so completely different. And just
picking them apart.
Yeah.
Separating the bits out with their forks and their knives so they can see the construction of it.
It was cool.
Taking pictures of the plating. Yeah, that was fun to watch them. And the food is just, everything is delicious.
Divine.
We've never had anything bad there.
It's divine.
I certainly wouldn't say we're experts on French food. We know a lot more about German food than we do French food, but we do know what we like.
I think we're getting closer and closer only because we've been to France so many times. We know what's not good.
Well, we know what we don't like.
Another place we often go is right next to the d'Orsay, actually, across from the Louvre.
As you're walking from the Louvre to the d'Orsay, or the other way around. La Frégat, which is it's right on the banks of the Seine. It's not, I wouldn't really say it's like
not one of the
high
best
culinary destination. It's more about the location for that one.
Well, not just that, but the lunches, they have a set lunch menu, and they always serve onion soup, and they always serve steak frite.
There's always a steak frite with a pepper sauce.
With the pepper sauce. And I mean, you can't go to Paris and not have steak frite.
Yes.
For lunch. I mean, you just can't.
And it's good, and the price is affordable.
Yeah, it's affordable.
So that's a great lunch. And like I said, it's a good location for when you're touring those areas. Where else do we go?
Well, there's the gastronomie.
Oh, another Le Comptoir.
Well, the thing about Le Comptoir de la Gastronomie is it's all about the foie gras. So if you have a problem with foie gras, this is not the restaurant for you.
There are other things on the menu, 2 or 3, but the menu really is based around foie gras. And it's seasonal, and it's all, they're trying to highlight the produce of the different regions of France, and I think they do a great job, and the food is excellent. But yes, it does lean more
heavily towards foie gras. So, and then like Jim mentioned, there's some really nice open air markets.
Yes.
We'll put a link in the show notes that
pretty much every
lists
day
them.
You can find an open air market.
Yeah, you can find a market. And here's the thing about the markets. Just like in the States, there's going to be parts where you can go have your lunch or your breakfast right there, have a nice coffee, as well as buying all those wonderful cheeses and some flowers or some wines. I mean, we tend to stay in hotels more in Paris, and outside of Paris, we might Airbnb it or do a gîte.
Right, where we'll do more market.
And so we might do more cooking. So we might buy more things when we're outside of Paris.
Some of the produce is incredible.
The cheese, I mean, at least get yourself some kind of cheese and a big baguette and some rosé wine and go sit down in one of the many parks.
Well, one of the best sandwiches I've had was from that market in Montmartre, where they had the whole wheel of cheese, where they had a burner.
It's a raclette.
Yeah, it's raclette. The burner's right over the top of the wheel of cheese, melting it right down on the wheel itself.
Oh my gosh.
They would just spin it around, scrape the melted part onto a fresh baguette. If you wanted ham, they'd put a slice of ham on it. And there you go. Talk about a great melted cheese sandwich. It was the best. The best. The best.
And I love a good French cheese. I mean, I think that if I ever wanted to live in France, that would be the reason why. And I would make a vow to have a different fromage every day.
You could. Are there 365 different cheeses?
I believe there are more than that.
You might be able to go a couple years without ever having the same cheese twice.
So I think we've told you just about everything we'd like you to know about your first time in Paris. Like we said, don't overdo it. Don't pressure yourself into seeing it all. Why make it, stressful? Have fun. Walk the Seine.
Plan on going back.
Plan on going back. Go to the opera. Listen to a show. Go out to eat. Take a picnic. Or like we said, rent a car and get out into the countryside.
You don't have to drive far to get out of the city.
No.
It's pretty easy to do. Or when you're looking for a hotel, look for a hotel a little further out on the edge of the city. If that's something you're going to be doing, they're more likely to have parking. So you can deal with your car that way. One of the places we really like to stay is in Ibis. And that's a chain.
They have a few different levels. They have a real budget one, a median one, and
styles and fashion and boutique. So they got all levels covered. And the whole area of the city is covered. One of our favorites to stay in is in the Bercy area. And it's really well connected to the city. It's right on the Seine again. There's a metro stop right there. There's a bus stop right there. So it's really easy to get from your hotel to other places. And that's what you're looking for when you're looking for a hotel in Paris. Yes, you can probably get one, right down in the Latin Quarter or near the Eiffel Tower. We've stayed in a few hotels in those areas, and there are some pretty good deals to be had in that area if you look and you book early enough. But my biggest advice is just to make sure that wherever you stay, that you do have a metro stop and a bus stop very nearby. You don't want to have to walk for 10 minutes before you catch your public transportation. There's too many hotels, too many good hotels to where you don't have to do that.
Okay. Well, I think that we've about brought you up to speed. If you have any questions, always feel free to join our private Facebook group at Streets and Eats and ask around. We've been to Paris numerous times, and I'm sure other people on the Facebook page have as well. Right. So if you're going for your first time, I'm sure we can get you covered.
Ask questions. If you've been before, leave tips and just join the conversation. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. We really love that you're here listening to us, and we'd love to hear your feedback.
Alrighty.
All right.
Ciao for now.